Hey guys, welcome to Pfannenberg's first ever virtual trade show. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we at Pfannenberg have to be working from home. But in addition to that, our trade show down in Florida was canceled about a couple weeks ago. So we did the next best thing, and we could bring the trade show to you virtually. So what I'm going to be doing is this is filmed, pre-recorded. So I will be moderating this webinar. And at the end, you guys can ask any questions that you need, and we can go into some Q&A. What we're going to cover today is understanding what you're alarming. So we're going to talk a little bit about our concept, which is indication, warning, and alarming. Next, we're going to get into a little bit of the IIAR 2A design standards. Talk a little bit about audible and visual signals, what it is that you need to be looking for when you're putting these into a boiler room, chiller room, maybe on a dock, different type things. The next thing, we're going to do a live demonstration. I'm actually going to show you one of our parts and compare it to something else that's in the market, and then what you have to know when choosing the right device. And then we're going to get into a little bit of Pfannenberg's newer products that we have coming out, something that's specific to gas detection that will really help you guys out, and we're going to follow it up with some Q&A. So looking forward to it. This should be fun. We're here in my race shop right now, so I've got a motorcycle here, my race car right here. You probably can't see, but I've got my 12-week-old puppy right here playing with a bone. So he might be coming into the video in and out, not totally sure. But looking forward to kind of talking to you guys a little bit about gas detection and what makes Pfannenberg so great. Thanks. In order to understand what signal you need to choose for your specific application, you need to know how to classify that type of event. At Pfannenberg, we utilize indication, warning, and alarm to classify our products into those certain areas. This goes along for any type of signaling, whether you're using it on a fork truck, whether it's being put on a machine, or if it's used to evacuate somebody from an ammonia exposure. Within here at Pfannenberg, indication is one of the lower ends where you may be able to use something smaller, such as a stack light. A stack light may be used to indicate if everything's okay. It could be green. It also could tell you if there's increased levels of a specific gas before you were to enter a room. This can be done usually with LED type technology, nothing that would blink, flash, or be like a xenon tube. You can also utilize what would be our quadro LED lights, something like this you could have constantly on, or you can have it blink and flash, and you could do different things with that. A warning event is a little bit more significant and requires you to actually get a little bit more attention, so the product would actually change. A warning event may be something where you're going into a room that has ammonia present, and it's telling you to not enter and that you should get away from that area. So there's always an area around that you should be able to be hearing and or seeing the type of alarm. Something like this, you may want to utilize a xenon strobe with your signaling device. You can utilize this, or maybe our smaller type xenon strobe lights to accomplish this, based on the size of your room and the ambient noise level behind it. An alarm event is the most serious of conditions. This is near emergency that you need to get out of the building. This is exactly what you'd see with a fire alarm. No difference with an ammonia alarm or any type of gas that may be present. This is something that you want the most powerful device for. When you're evacuating somebody, if there is a chiller or some type of compressor that may be loud, you want to make sure that your sounding device is at least 10 decibels above that, so you can hear it at the absolute loudest it can be. Something like this, you may want to utilize our PAX10, which is 117 decibels with a 10 or 15 joule strobe, or our PAX20, which is our 122 decibels, and it is a 15 joule strobe. This will absolutely warn your personnel to evacuate the building and get out so nobody gets hurt and or killed. Okay, now I want to talk a little bit about the codes and standards within gas detection, but specifically within the audible and visual alarms. As you know, this show is predicated on the IIAR design standards, but there's a lot out there. There's ASHRAE 15, NFPA, UMC, IFC, just to name a few, and each one of them have a little bit different interpretation on how you should mount and put your audible visual alarms inside of machinery rooms or engine rooms. One of the things behind what we want to communicate is moving forward, IIAR will be the design code that most of the other ones reference. So that'll make it a little bit easier when you're designing a system, knowing what to pick. As we got my dog Winston here playing with his toy. So a little bit behind IIAR 2A design standards. It's required that the alarm should be at least a minimum of 15 decibels above ambient. So as you guys have seen here, this is my decibel meter. As I talk, it fluctuates. So average means the average it'll be throughout the entire time, which is sometimes difficult to understand. But what's crucial is having it at least 5 decibels above the max decibels that you'll see within an engine room or wherever it may be. At Pfannenberg, we always say about 10 decibels is good, because 5 decibels you may not be able to hear it. So we like to go a little bit added safety factor behind that. And that's really important, that you're able to hear the alarm and evacuate the area if it's a warning event, or if it's an alarming event, just evacuate the entire facility as a whole. So that's very important. And after this, we'll do a comparative analysis showing some of the sounders out in the market and ours right here that we have, and the advantage that you may see utilizing a Pfannenberg signaling device. As somebody designing, it will be very easy for you to understand how many devices you need for a certain area, and it'll be a cost-effective way of doing it, because you're not putting too many signaling devices in a room that may confuse somebody, but also that you're able to hear it in the far-reaching areas of wherever it may be going. So as I just mentioned, the sound pressure level is very important when selecting the correct audible device. The audible device is very key and instrumental in alerting somebody to evacuate an area, or most likely the building. But according to the EPA, there has to be audible and visual alarms within certain areas where ammonia may be present. That would be compressor room, freezer, dock, anywhere where they're doing some type of production or a process area. That number is 25 parts per million. At 25 parts per million, there needs to be an audible and visual alarm that goes behind that. At Pfannenberg, we see people using audible visual alarms in many different ways. Lots of times it'll be the combination unit, which is very easily used. You have an independent use of the strobe versus the horn. And we have these in various different sizes, from 5 joules up to 15 joules. That's how bright it'll be. And from 100 decibels to 122 decibels. Also, some customers also may like to utilize a system where they're able to know the concentration of gas in an area. At that point, our stack lights become a really good use, where they may want to increase the stack level as the amount of ammonia is present. So that's something that you'd set with your sensors. But it's just another way to communicate what's going on in an area, and most importantly, when to evacuate when it's going to become a point where it's going to hurt you. Okay, so we moved the set around a little bit, and what I want to show you guys here is do a little bit of a side-by-side analysis of a Pfannenberg unit versus one of our competitors. There's no difference as far as what specific unit this may be, but the whole idea is to talk about the concept of the Pfannenberg three-dimensional coverage. So what does three-dimensional coverage? Some of you may know, some of you may not know what it is, but essentially it means within our signaling devices, the sound for a Pfannenberg unit will travel further than some of our competitors due to the technology that we have inside as far as how it's shaped and the digital sound that our units create. So what benefit does that provide to somebody who's buying our unit? You may buy one of these units or a similar unit, whatever it may be, and in order to meet code, you may have to buy 5 of these. But the way our sounders work is it covers a larger volume of space. So that means you may only need to buy 1, 2 of these to get the desired outcome out of them. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up and actually sound each one of these units. We're going to use the sound pressure level device that I have here and go through a little bit of an analysis. You know, if you're directly in front of a sounding device, sure, you're going to hear it. It's going to be pretty close to whatever it's rated for. However, a lot of times if you're working in an area, maybe inside of a cold storage facility, you may be, say, 20, 30 feet from a sounding device, and not all the time are you going to be directly in front of it. I'm never always going to be standing in front of it waiting for it to go off. You may be over here 20 feet working, and if there's an ammonia leak, you may not be able to hear it because you're not directly in front of it. So what I want to do is show you a little bit behind the technology that we have with our sounding devices, to where you may be 90 degrees from center on the sounding device and you'll still be able to hear it. And you'll be able to see that on our sound pressure level meter here. When you turn a device here, we'll turn this stand 90 degrees and we'll put the sounder off. What you'll see is that the Pfannenberg sounder will be louder than the other unit we have here. So we'll do that, and I'm sure after this we'll take some question and answers, but hopefully you guys enjoy this and it'll show a little bit behind the technology that makes Pfannenberg so great. Thanks. Okay, let me explain to you what I'm doing here. As you can see, we've got the backdrop set up with the 2 sounders set on it. We've got a tape measure here going to the front side of the stand. You'll see here I have my sound pressure level meter here. This is going to show the exact dB output at 10 feet, 10 foot. So what you're going to see here is 2 comparable sounders at a similar decibel output directly in front of the sounder. So what you'll see with a lot of product bulletins and manuals, a lot of sounders will say it's 100 decibels at a certain distance in front of the sounder. Most of the time it's 1 meter, but when you get further away from the sounder, the sound pressure level, the actual dB output, is far less. When you turn that off center, meaning this is 90 degrees in front, when you turn this at an angle, it'll be even far less. When that happens, that is where the Pfannenberg PA1 here will succeed. But we'll show you that in this actual test. Okay, so what we have set up, we showed before, these are 10 feet apart. This test is going to show the competitive type unit and the Pfannenberg PA1. I have these both set to where they're the exact same sound pressure level right in front of the sounder. So it'll show once we turn this, the stand here, that the Pfannenberg PA1 covers a wider area. That means the sounder is going to be pointing away from the camera, but where we are taking our measurement will not. So this may be a little bit loud. So the first one that I have here is I'm going to show the competitive unit. So that was about 94 decibels. Now I will show the Pfannenberg PA1. So a little bit less, it's about 92.2 decibels, but that's no big deal. So directly in front, the competitive sounder, we have set for about 2 decibels above. Again, don't take too much into the actual sound of it and how loud it is directly in front. Anybody can get a sounder that's a certain decibel level directly in front where you're taking your measurements. However, the real advantage is when you turn it. So I'm still staying at 10 feet. However, I'm turning it directly 90 degrees away. So I will go back and we will do the competitor's product. "87 decibels. So that was a drop of 7 decibels. Then we will do the Pfannenberg PA1. "88.7. So that's a drop of 4 decibels. So you could see the comparison of that. Ours will only drop very little amount when you turn it 90 degrees or wherever in the room. But when you start adding distance to that, instead of just 10 feet, maybe be 20 feet or 30 feet, that's not a linear curve where it won't drop by another 4 decibels. After 10 feet, it's exponential at that point. So it'll start dropping off even more. So when you get to a further distance, that's where you see the real advantage of a Pfannenberg sounder. Our sound will travel much further than the mechanical type devices that you see in the market nowadays. Okay guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the virtual trade show. It wasn't too long. After this, I'm going to be moderating this on the side. I've pre-recorded this so that way afterwards we could talk a little bit behind some questions and answers that anybody may have. And I would also like to talk a little bit about a couple products that fit really well into the gas detection market. That will be huge for everybody. So stick around, ask some questions, and anything that you need, feel free to get in contact with me. It's jacob.vernon@pfannenbergusa.com, or you can reach out to me on my cell at any point, 716-989-9848. Again, I'm the signaling product specialist for Pfannenberg Signaling. Thanks, guys.